Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Maximize Excellence. I'm Lori Harris. I'm managing partner at Harris Whitesell Consulting, and I am your host. And today, we've got a great topic today. I say this every time, but I am pretty excited about this guest today. And I'm going to let her tell you all about a lot of stuff, but I do want to introduce her. Her name is Diane Wells. She is the founder and CEO of Impartial. And we're going to dive into what is Impartial. She's been a longtime resident of Raleigh, North Carolina, in that area. And she's got a background in securities and real estate, undergraduate and graduate degrees in economics and business, and lots of great certifications and licensure in real estate, coaching, paralegal, etc. She started a criminal justice nonprofit in 2021, and this just isn't your ordinary startup of a nonprofit. You're going to love this story. I'm really excited about this. And I'm just going to give you a highlight. How's that? So years prior to 2021, Diane was accused of a crime she did not commit regarding her administrative role on a venture capital management committee. Now, Diane applies her business acumen, her professionalism, her leadership skills, and more to support the U.S. criminal justice nonprofit Impartial that offers the best access to justice and innovative ways to fill in the gaps and the mistakes made by the criminal justice system. So everybody, I just hope you can join me, and please remember you're more than welcome to use the comments box to post your questions or your comments or your support. And please welcome me in joining and introducing Diane Wells.
Well, Lori, thank you so much. I have been looking forward to this for a while for so many reasons. I certainly respect the work that you have been doing and the leadership qualities that I've already seen in you. Have just been very encouraging. Likewise, we are a very nimble organization, and it's just coming alongside like-minded people, and that synergy that it creates is just, it's a very exciting place to be. And I don't know how I really can't overstate that, because it's the reason that you really jump out of bed in the morning and say it's going to be a great day.
Yeah, I believe in the connectivity. I believe in alignment. I believe in coherence, and we were brought to each other. And so, in full disclosure, Diane signed with us just recently, and we're going to be doing some great work with her. And this happened though because of other relationships that we have with Lillian Henderson, and I know she's going to be out there and in the audience and listening in and supporting you. She's just a wonderful, wonderful resource and a great friend and a great attribute to what she does. So I'm really glad for that, by the way, and grateful. Diane, I want to dive in because this is such a great story. This is a profound story, and it's got a lot of context to it. And I, when we think about maximizing excellence, for us in the talent management world, it's about the people in the organizations and truly creating a culture and a climate in which people thrive, in which people are truly able to align their personal selves, their core values to the company values and the company philosophy. And they're really truly able to optimize talent because everyone is focusing on those things that in which create value and opportunity and growth. And by the way, it doesn't come without the challenge, because guess what? Humanity threads through the workplace. Therefore, there's going to be mistakes and there's going to be things that happen. So given that foundation that I just kind of set on this, being impactful, being impartial was the title that you chose for this podcast today. I want you to describe more about your approach to being impactful and impartial.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's, to be impactful really just starts with being self-aware. Who are you and what do you have to offer? And it's a very honest self-assessment. There's no grade on it. You know if you're being honest or you're not, or do you need help or you don't. But I'm using impactful as it relates to doing something that's well beyond yourself. And it's probably beyond your comfort zone. That's where the growth is. And here I'm really referring to something that has a higher purpose than you normally maybe you strive for on your own. So, for example, as a country, we're dealing with issues that are massive in scale. There's an estimated 2,500 criminal justice nonprofits that have carved out a mission from understanding the gaps and the errors in our system. And about 40% of those nonprofits are essentially out of business due to no revenue or no assets. Historically, 70% of U.S. donations to all nonprofits are directed by the top 1% of donors. So most large corporations give up to 1% of their profit. But, if they don't have a profit, there's no donation. There's no guarantees of any donation at any time, or the frequency or the size. And most medium and smaller corporations, they don't have a long-term track record of continuous philanthropic support. So yet there are the countless people and organizations that do give their time, they do give their ideas, their donations, and that's extremely important to recognize. But how do you operate a business or any business without knowing where your revenue is to pay for anything, your general operations, your programs, marketing, et cetera? Most people scrutinize a nonprofit much differently than they do a for-profit organization. When you buy a product or service from a for-profit company, as a consumer, you don't ask the company how much was the cost of that item or that service, or what part of it is profit and what are you going to do with that profit? Investors ask those type of questions. So if someone gives funds to a nonprofit, they don't often talk about running the business. They just insist oftentimes that their donation go to the cause. And this is part of where the disconnect is. The cause is only supported by the business. Without a viable business, no mission exists. So what people really are saying is that I want my donation to make an impact. That's what they're saying by what they're doing. It's like, I trusted you with my money and I want to know what happened to it. I want to know what the impact was. I want the story. I want the numbers to the extent that this information is available. I want the nonprofit that I gave my hard-earned dollars to have integrity. And all of that is very understandable. We donate to who and what we trust. So we trust ourselves, and we often trust our community to know what needs are that are out there, and therefore why we should help. The communities are your neighborhoods, your workplaces, your interest group, or any group that comes together. And programs can be co-created to support nonprofits that are meaningful. I know because we do that. Now, the future of philanthropy and the survival or even thriving of nonprofits is shifting towards community-led collaboratives. So there's a bridge now between people who want to do good things with their ideas and their money and their time, and the people who lead the charge to make a mission a reality. So there are communities that come together and they say, what's going on around here that we need to address? What voice do we want to have in the decision that affects our communities? So if there are nonprofits that have carved out a specific mission, the community can kind of collectively say, we vote for you. We see what you're doing. That our group has collected some funding, or we want to volunteer, or we have some ideas that could help you, and we want you to be able to do more or to do better. Collectively, the next generation, they don't view philanthropy the way the last generation did. So first, because the amount of information that's readily available on their phones gives them immediate data to nearly everything they want to know. Second, younger workers or people in the community, younger people in the community, have formed their view of the world through current events in their lifetime. That's their view of the world. The Ukraine war, huge swings in real estate values and interest rates, COVID, school shootings, mass incarceration, climate and environmental types of issues, and ongoing political fiascos. Many of these factors and assumptions are from that previously have guided philanthropic efforts. They've changed a lot. There are new ways to accomplish goals, and some missions are getting even more critical than what we've had in the past. Yet masses of people have a moral hunger, and we have to allow ourselves a space and a vision to create our best futures, our families, our communities, and others, where we come together so that we can have an impact. It's really a component of our good mental health. Helping others really just takes the focus off of our own problems, our own circumstances. You aren't responsible for solving these issues, but it is important for you to respond well to your own moral compass that you have. So while you're responsible to take care of yourself, your dependents, others, that's all good. But when you can be part of a collective force to make an impact on something that you feel like that just shouldn't be that way, that bothers me, or let's take the first steps towards making an impact, you realize sometimes it's just the hardest part really is just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
Impact has that kind of effect that we're all truly seeking. And it becomes a habit. It's going to a regular meeting to share your ideas. It's donating a small amount that you can afford on a regular basis. It's spending time with someone that needs what you have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say, for me, years ago, I didn't know what I didn't know. I hadn't made much of an impact with anybody other than my own family. I was living in my own bubble, very comfortable. And then our criminal justice system is one of those things I knew nothing about. I had no reason to question what it really was. It didn't touch my life until one day it consumed it.
I want you to stop there. I want you just to hold that, because I do want you to dive into this. And I just want to say the whole comment you made around being responsible is in fact consciousness, and it is in fact the ability to, for leaders especially, and many people attach to their moral compass this title of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, in today's society, we need more conscious leaders. Absolutely. And because responsibility for self is the beginning of being a great conscious leader, and therefore being able to better manage this moral compass that we thrive, that we desire to keep alive and nurture and foster. So I just want to add that in here, in that I love that you're bringing to the table this mindset of people who are engaging from a moral mindset, from a conscious mindset, from a responsible mindset of self. So thank you very much. Couldn't agree more. And then I will let you tell your story, but I think this is going to be, everybody out there, get ready, get your pens, because this is a great story.
Well, I appreciate that, because, I sat on things for a long time, and I did a very long-term self-assessment for my own well-being and for whatever it is that I decided to pour myself into. And the thing that I felt like I actually culminated in is that being impactful isn't really intended to make you happy. It makes you whole.
Yeah. Right.
And that became a much higher purpose than just about anything else I could think of in the world, is to try to be whole, because there's a lot of things pulling at you that'll pull you apart if you let them. But if you keep them close, and you keep things that need to be surrounding you and that wholeness, keep that, very, very sacred territory there. There's just a big difference. People want to be happy, but I think they really more would rather be whole.
And
Happiness.
I think this piece about wholeness sets the table for you to tell the story about being impartial and what that means to you and how it's brought you forward.
Yes. So being impartial is really, it's a mindset that we encourage as it relates to the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
The name of our criminal justice nonprofit is Impartial, and we really spent a lot of time to get to that point. And that's actually wasn't even the first name of the endeavor that we had.
Oh,
Yeah, it was kind of I'll say a swing and a miss, but the mission hadn't changed. But it's that mindset that kind of took a while to get really focused. And so, now it's very clear that impartiality is what we need for justice, and
mhm.
exists to co-create programs to support U.S. criminal justice nonprofits. So if you think of anyone and how they're working in the criminal justice system or being part of it somehow and how you want to be treated, you want as much impartiality as possible. Our own experiences and our traditions and authorities that are in our life that influence us to some minor and significant extent, we have to be mindful of that, because we're talking about people's liberty at this point.
Right.
That's the arena that you're in. So separating the wisdom that you have learned from the biases and the prejudices and that can seep in your life, you have to make informed decisions, and you have to keep certain things at bay while still using, some of the best wisdom that you've been able to gather over the years. So to be impartial is to be curious. It's to want to learn, to be open, and to have this new point of view. I mean, if you're a judge or a juror or a prosecutor and you're a decision maker, you are held to a high standard of care, and being impartial is what serves that justice.
Mhm.
So impartial is a starting point. It's a new beginning or a shift if necessary. You present yourself as unlearning certain things that don't serve justice as much as you do as relearning or reinforcing things around the probability that justice will prevail. So it is, in my opinion, coming right back to the innocent until proven guilty point of view, that we say is there. Let's make that happen. On a lighter note, coincidentally, the middle three letters of the word impartial are ART, art. And we have a tremendous amount of prison artwork, and prison artwork explains a great deal about the population that has experienced the criminal justice most intensely. But how we treat some of the most marginalized people in our country says a lot about who we are as people. And so, again, I believe our starting point is with being impartial. So that's why it's named that.
So how did it get started?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
this always is going to be the most humbling part of any conversation. I hope I don't get emotional about it, because it's happened before and it could happen again. But I was prosecuted over 15 years ago for a crime I didn't commit. And it was, the most difficult, humbling experience that I've ever known. But I saw firsthand how our system performed. And I was a very well-resourced, educated person, and I was being truthful. But, after it was all over, I thought, well, what chance do others have that are less fortunate than me, seeing what I experienced? And I didn't go to prison, but I was convicted and I was acquitted. Then I was reconvicted and sentenced by the judge that acquitted me. So from what I understand, most defense attorneys call that a crazy case. And that's what my attorney has said a number of times. But what it did do is it taught me a tremendous amount about the journey that some people are on, and what they can do, what they can't do, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and all the work that we really have to do. Because I just told the truth to the best of my ability for the 6 years that I went through that. And I discovered that some facts just couldn't be proven, and that others are impossible to do. I just learned a great deal about the system, and I felt like that I had something different and special to offer to increase the probability that justice would prevail. And so as we organize like-minded people and support these nonprofits that have already got a specific, gap or error in the system, everybody can be positively impacted by coming alongside of them. So Impartial is relatively young and nimble, and we're humble and we're learning. But the focus has been and always will be that there are great nonprofits out there doing incredible work. Let's help them do that better and more.
Love it. And what makes you different from some of these other criminal justice nonprofits?
Well, most criminal justice nonprofits and nonprofits, they've got this specific mission that, they found something wrong, trying to educate somebody after they get out of prison, or how to change laws, or how to just restorative justice. A lot of these, and I admire that tremendously. But what we're doing is we're raising all of them up so that others can learn about all of the good work that's being done here. It's not any kind of, we do this or we do that. We just want everybody to benefit from creating that awareness, creating support. And, some nonprofits have already stepped forward to work with us, and we're building a program with them. We screen the nonprofit potential partner to be sure that they meet certain requirements like IRS compliance, and they have a criminal justice mission, and that they're willing to collaborate with us. And I'd say another thing that distinguishes us in particular is that we focus on two groups. What we have right now is we've got the leaders that are the executive directors and their staff that are these criminal justice nonprofit organizations, and they have their mission. And so they know how to fix things or how to make things better. And then you've got the second group, which is the future leaders of the criminal justice system. These are the law students. These are people that are wide-eyed. They are curious. They have learned academically things that are going on, and they want to be able to serve justice in their own way. And if they know then what needs to be done to make improvements, and they want it to be better, the synergy, how they can learn from one another and benefit the criminal justice system, is where, in my belief, that's the sweet spot there. So, of course, we want all people who want to advocate for an improved criminal justice system feel welcomed, but those are the groups that we feel like are a logical partnership to be able to be as efficient as possible.
Tell us about, you briefed on it, about the artwork, the prison artwork program, but go further into the details of where is it at right now in its process of development and growth, and what's coming up with it, and a little bit more about what it is.
Oh, absolutely. I've got to tell you, I've really been overwhelmed by this at times, but nothing starts a conversation quicker about who Impartial is than seeing prison artwork. We are fortunate to have a vast collection of over 1,200 pieces of prison artwork.
Amazing.
So from caveman type drawings that I might even be able to do, which I have zero talent there, to museum quality pieces, we just have an incredible selection. And when you stare at the artwork too, Lori, it's interesting because when you think about where it was created and who created it, and all of the environment, the circumstances under which it was created, it makes most people pause.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sometimes staring at somebody who's staring at the artwork. We've had some exhibits done and so forth, so I've been fortunate to mingle among the visitors and so forth. And I somewhat casually interview them a little bit because it's interesting to know, are they more intrigued with the art or the fact that this was made in prison or how it was made? And there's always, different comments, but I learned from it. But just to summarize, there may or may not be any art supplies available to a prisoner. They often only have each other to learn from and to be encouraged by. And each correctional facility has its own tone about how artwork is handled. For some, it's a privilege, and others, it's therapy, and still others, it's bartering. I remember when I first started doing this, and one prisoner wrote to us and he sent us some artwork, and his name's Tommy. And Tommy made this incredible koala bear on a piece of cloth with ink. And I wish I had it with me right now to show it to you, but it was just, he said he just took 3 days and he made this koala bear, and it's fairly large, and there's not, I mean, you can inspect it. There's just not a flaw in it. And it was amazing. And Tommy said that he has life in prison. And he said that he's faced the reality that he'll never be released from prison, but takes comfort by producing meaningful artwork. So Tommy views each piece of his artwork as part of himself that's being liberated when it goes, they call it out in the world, to be hung on somebody's wall and enjoyed. That's humbling. I really sat on that quite a bit.
Okay, I want to read something to you, and I have goosebumps. I have chills. I have chill bumps all over. Art classes teach us, so I can only imagine, because most of us out here in the world we have the freedom to go do art classes. And you mentioned that often these prisoners learn from one another, and they don't have the supplies that we have access to as well. It teaches us to respect others, to start a dialogue, experiment with materials, observe, find their voice, self-evaluate, make connections, express themselves, learn from their own mistakes, clean up, reflect on the work, embrace the diversity and the uniqueness of it, persevere, have an opinion, appreciate, see the beauty, break away from stereotypes, envision solutions, value aesthetics. What's this last one? Oh, and be open to points of view and innovate. And I find that fascinating. I mean, I seriously just posted this yesterday, and I want to say there's great freedom in art. And all of those things are associated with freedom. And art comes in many forms. And you have drawings and paintings, sculpture, I would suspect, as well, probably pieces of sculpture as well. Do you ever get recordings, music or anything like that? Or are they?
Yep. Again, I actually was going to mention that each correctional facility is just so different on what is allowed. So there have been some prison bands that have recorded. So I have some CDs of Christmas music that they recorded. But sometimes it's allowed into correctional facilities and sometimes it's not. A lot of it has to do with who's in charge and what the whole environment will allow, because safety is always their most important thing.
Yeah.
And so to the extent that they can have these types of activities and still have the safety that's required, then they can do so, but some don't risk that.
So you've got all this artwork. You do have connection with these artists that are in prison. And are you doing galleries? Are you doing online sales? Are you doing auctions, etc.? So what are you doing with the work and for these individuals, and what's happening? Yeah.
Sure. So we've done art exhibits, and we have some coming up as well that are scheduled. And in the foreseeable future, I wish I could put an exact date on it, but maybe, message me and so forth, and I'll be able to give an exact date. But we're going to be streaming the artwork, and we're going to be auctioning and eventually selling it online. The important thing to me, again, is just to have integrity with what we do with someone's artwork. And so the first thing we were doing once we have received the artwork is to photograph it and edit it and then put it in a database with as much information as possible. So when you have 1,200 pieces, you can understand how that it takes some time really to build as much information as possible so that everybody always wants to know something about who did the artwork. And, I want to have good information for that. So yes, we'd like to be able to stream artwork, for example, in law schools or in law offices or in other places where the dialogue can start. Because as I said to begin with this, I mean, it opens a conversation like nothing else does.
Yes.
So, but to the extent that we're going to sell it, we need to make sure that we have all our I's dotted and T's crossed before we do that, so that everybody is good. And we are getting close to that. But that would be one reason why I'd love to be able to hear from people, so that they say, I'd like to be on a list, that when you start to make this available, let me know, and I'd be delighted to do that.
Are you collaborating with a lot of these art councils that are local, regional, statewide, nationwide?
We have started to do that. It's just depends on the bandwidth that we have to do the project as a whole. And so we've been doing all the photographing and editing and things of this nature, that concurrently getting involved with, like, we were an art space in downtown Raleigh. We are working with Triangle Artworks, and we have other organizations that we're involved with, and more that we'd like to be able to be involved with. Absolutely.
So what happens? You sell the artwork. What's going to happen with the funds, and how does that?
Well, it's a little complicated, only because sometimes we receive artwork and we don't know who it's from. So what we do is, we want to donate as much as possible to criminal justice nonprofits. So we would be evaluating being able to send proceeds, percentage of the proceeds from the sales then to nonprofits. And then we have other people that we know who they are, and to the extent that they're allowed to be compensated, because some are and some are not. Some people do it just for the joy of the work. Other people would like to be able to be compensated, but that depends on a lot of different circumstances that's probably too involved to discuss. Yeah. But to the extent we can do that, we want to be able to do that. Absolutely.
Love it. So there's more to Impartial. I definitely want to tap into all this. Tell us about your Justice video game.
That was something that was a little bit of a surprise to me as well. I've not been a gamer before. I have my son, for example, years ago was a gamer, and it's just always interesting that even though it's something that I wasn't familiar with, all of a sudden it was like a light bulb moment, because I realized how games are teachable moments that are just seamlessly put into the game. And so, if you're having fun and you're learning, and, the game is moving along, and then you play it again, you play it a different way. It's really interesting. So we're creating a video game. We've had a group that's been meeting for a little over a year, and it's basically that it's my prosecution, and it's unfolding within this game. So I became the writer of the game, which I needed a lot of help to do that. I knew what had happened. I just didn't know how to write it in a game. But the people that are playing the game learn about the criminal justice system by just the choices that they make and the far-reaching consequences that they might have, and they might play it again differently the next time, or so forth. But you might try to escape the system, or you may try to, deal with someone that committed perjury, or maybe your rights were violated, or maybe you can't prove the truth. So players just have a lot of teachable moments about what our criminal justice system is and isn't. And I've tried to put a little comic relief in there too, because there's a lot of lighter moments that go on through that. But, we try to entertain as well as, offer some really interesting, processes within the system. Right. But we're close to being able to test the game. And that's very exciting. It's also, humbling, because people test the game, they find out what's wrong with it, and they so we go back and fix all those things. But we want people to be able to play the game, learn, do it repetitively, so that they see the different results, and be, like I said, a little bit lighthearted about something that's pretty darn serious to most people.
Right. Yeah, crime is it's one of the most watched and people engage in crime stories. Books, TV, streaming, it's at the top of the heap when it comes to entertainment and value. So you could have something very special here. I look forward to seeing it launch and see people engaged with it and their feedback on it. It's going to be great. Love that.
Appreciate the encouragement.
So with this organization, you definitely are looking at creating a membership program. Talk about what that is and what are the offerings there.
Yeah, I've been members of a lot of different organizations over the years. And what I've done, and maybe this is me just getting older and getting more selective, but if I'm a member of something, I really want to be involved. I don't want to be just, checking a box and saying I'm a member. So I've been really very mindful about what the membership would look like. So here's what I'd really want to be able to do besides the traditional things like, yes, as a member, you would get discounts or you would get invited to events that people otherwise wouldn't necessarily be invited to. But for us, it's not just about joining the group. It's about distinguishing your level of involvement and what you think is important. Yeah. So it's an active community of being able to learn together and share ideas. It's being intentionally curious and disrupting short-term thinking that gets us stuck a lot of times. And instead, to really be a little bit vulnerable, to show ourselves a little bit, and then invite some transformation in there. So collectively, are we willing to prepare for a better criminal justice system? I mean, because the system is people. And, granted, there are laws, but people make the laws, but, it is people. And so let's just talk about what the membership is going to look like. Okay, so let's just say one part of the membership is we'll walk into the U.S. criminal justice system 10 years from now, 2033, and you're a defendant or a juror or a judge or a warden or prisoner or prosecutor, whatever the scenario might be. But what is the environment? What are the artifacts and the scenarios that are taking place in this 2033 criminal justice setting? And what things are missing that are currently here that are now obsolete? What things are new that are providing a better level of service as it relates to a good justice system? So, it's a lot of questions, and we just want to start that dialogue. When you can start to see things, because we'll create, our own courtroom there. People can start to see it. We'll do it together. How do you want a circle instead of having a plaintiff and a defendant and a judge and a witness chair and a jury pool? Do you want to have a circle? Does that do anything for it? I mean, let's just talk about how things are arranged differently, and maybe people get to ask questions to a defendant that they previously had walls up there. But the whole thing is to keep the things that are most important elevated. What's going to serve justice best? And that's where we start. So, that we have so many habits, and that this is the way things have always been, and that's not the reason to continue it.
So are you going to keep your, and I'm hearing forums for some reason in my head, and I'm using that term, and it might not be the right term, but I'm hearing you. What I'm thinking is, as you're speaking about this, are these online forums within your website?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And not necessarily on social media, but within your website. Yeah. So these are forums. So memberships can join communities within and forums within your website to engage and take leadership roles in. And
yeah, you hit on something right there too, Lori, because it's interesting, because I want the people that are really willing to dig into this in a meaningful way. I want those leaders to be able to be recognized. We'll have a system to do that. And it's not like I'm better than you or whatever, but it's people who just spend more time, bring more resources, do more, that we recognize them. Because actually, I'd like to have someone from the membership group to be on our board of advisors. Mm-hmm. Because then if you have that, the collective wisdom from the membership is then part of the advisory group, and that could help us to co-create more programs that would, again, come directly out of the membership pool of people who are actively thinking about what we could do.
It reminds me of Singularity University has an online community forum like that is phenomenal, and they've got their categorical communities, and yet there's leaders for each one of those communities, and they kind of all roll up, and it's very powerful. They get a lot of innovation out of that.
Yes.
And it is a positive way to test for disruption, for opportunity to create higher value. Yeah, it's such a phenomenal tool and it's very doable. I commend you for that. That's a big initiative as well. So that's wonderful. Are you going to be doing events
Yes.
and educational opportunities for them as
Yes.
well? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. The membership is going to be quite significant. When I think about it, it can really overwhelm me a little bit just because I see a lot of opportunity there. And I just want others, to start to help figure out how to prioritize what needs to be done and when and how and so forth. But
Uh-huh.
I just believe in the collective wisdom of individuals that are like-minded. What can we do? And let's push through this.
So let's jump in because you guys out there, there's so much going on here. It's a wonderful, wonderful nonprofit and program, but I do want to get this in. Tell us about your criminal justice investigative journalism program. This is pretty interesting. Yeah.
Well, there's over 200 law schools in the United States, and I find that there are law students, particularly, that are interested in being able to write with us, which is pretty exciting, honestly, because
Mhm.
it's mutually beneficial. They learn a lot about what their work is going to be potentially, and we get the privilege of seeing their point of view. And so most recently, for example, over the summer, we had a group of 7 writers, and they produced a fairly significant selection of criminal justice research-based articles. So we would meet regularly throughout the week, and then as groups with a writing coach, and polish those articles, as well as review those topics, and what should we be talking about in best practices and things of that nature. So we talk about the death penalty, or how best practices from other countries and prisons could be applied to U.S. prisons. We talk about how to educate people in prison, or the what's it like to be in a major city's courtroom, and what does that look like, the processing and all that. There were so many really interesting topics that these students had selected, and so their topics they're always well researched. Oftentimes they get subject matter experts that are part of the process as well. And so the writer really, this student has created an article that bridges you from the understanding that you probably have at this time, as though you're sitting next to them. Let's look at the insightful questions that they've asked the experts, and just how justice actually works or doesn't, what the shortfalls are. So, they bridge that whole experience through their writing. And I was just extremely proud of them. I thought that they did just an incredible job.
And you're going to continue with this ongoing. Do you have a blog? Is it published on your website on the blog?
We have a blog, and we also have stories. And honestly, those two things are being developed right now. So again, another reason to reach out to us and ask us to keep you informed about when that will be kind of a little bit more significantly launched. But the blog has been in existence for a while. We're going to beef that up. And the stories, Lori, are going to be stories from the prisoners substantially, which I think are really an amazing opportunity, because there's so many different, paths that have gotten people to where they are, and what they've learned about themselves, and what they want for others. And for them, it's a humbling story. If you need to have a tissue box close by when that comes along.
Wow.
It's a lot.
I love this. I do. This is the humanity. This is the thread of humanity through it all. And I love this. Yeah. And it's for such a time as this. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So what is your vision for Impartial a year from now or 5 years from now? Talk about this vision.
Well, what I could take a deep sigh with is, a year from now, if we have built out the programs that we have right now, so that our core operation is well supported through our own revenue, donations, and grants, and so forth, and that prison artwork would most likely lead the way in terms of creating awareness. The justice video game would be playable, and would attract advocates and so forth there, and that the writings would draw people in, the journalism that we have out there, that would help better align people so that they would see if they're like-minded to what's going on with us. And we actually have a credit card that we're going to be issuing in the next while that will allow people to fairly easily donate their cash back to us. So in terms of a very simple, practical way to be able to make an impact, that doesn't get much easier than that. So, and a year from now, I hope that we have a small, lean staff. We have a large number of volunteers right now. I hope that we have a lean staff there. Then looking 5 years from now, I really would just like to have advanced programs that are focused on the best data and the ideas that come out of these memberships, and some of the things that that we're discussing right now, that the driving force obviously is going to continue to be making the impact, but that every person that's involved will really feel as though the impact that they get is customized to what they want to do, what they have time to do, what they think they can make a difference in, because that's how people stay connected long term. Is they've done that assessment, they figured it out, and now where we got in the criminal justice system didn't happen recently. It is a compounding of a long time, and likewise to unwind that or to move in another direction is going to take a while. So just having somebody who does something regularly to contribute is the key to it, I think. So yes.
Excellent. All right. So let me ask you, when we think of maximizing excellence, and you just talked about a lot of programming that you have in place and coming into launch here in the next year to 5 years. And you have also mentioned that people being the number one asset here in regards to seeing this to success, seeing this with sustainability. How do you maximize excellence?
I think you maximize excellence mostly by just recognizing who somebody is and encouraging them to be the best version of themselves. And everybody has a different way to go about that in terms of the amount of time and support that they need for that. And I feel like I'm a product of that, and there's plenty of room for growth and improvement for myself. But it was only when I stopped doing what you're so busy doing and thinking that busyness is worth something, and saying, wait a minute, what's really important here? What really is going to fill me up? How am I going to get whole? How am I going to feel like what I do every day is contributing to what matters in the long term, as well as being responsible for today? And so you maximize that excellence by habits that you put in place that increase the probability that'll happen.
How did you do that? Did you have a coach? Talk about that. This is a great story too. It's not only what happened to you in your life, but before that, you were building, you were developing, you were on a mission.
Yeah. Well, I did take some coaching certifications that really made a difference. It was at a key time in my life. But here, the willingness to do that, Lori, I think is night and day. If you're not willing to be open to receive that information, it's just going to repel off of you. It doesn't stick. It doesn't matter, and so forth. So with all that took place with me, I just was humbled and vulnerable and felt like I was on the floor. Okay, I got to reassess everything. I got to just, if something is in my life, why is it there?
Yeah, it's that state of willingness becomes that place where we jump into courage, where we become responsive, where we open, and like you say, we get curious, we learn, we grow. And in that organic process, it often happens in a blink of an eye over time. It's like, wow, you look back and you go, that was 2 years ago. That was 5 years ago. Here I am today, and completely better person today than I was yesterday. And you continue that. I heard you earlier mention that it is a continuous growth and development opportunity for me. And I heard you also say, I'm continuing to look forward to doing that.
Oh yeah.
That that is golden. No, that's a part of the golden nuggets of being a great leader, and realizing results, collective results. And these programs that you mentioned, you're looking at bringing in very key people and resources and the ability to fold that out so that you exponentially make impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, when somebody volunteers with us, my conversations with somebody that wants to volunteer is always, this has to be mutually beneficial. I
Mhm.
want to learn from you. I want you to learn from us. And I want you to feel like you can say whatever you need
Yeah.
to us. And so opening up and having that communication, I think is really important. And I say my job, my only job where somebody who wants to help us is concerned is to learn how to support them. And I
Oh,
mean that very sincerely. And
you
so,
do.
yeah. And so, yeah.
You do. You absolutely do. And it's because you're willing to do that as well. Willingness is key. State of readiness is key. There is the ability, if you're not ready, you think you're willing and you're not ready, it doesn't stick, like you say.
Yeah.
So yes, it matters greatly. How does somebody get involved with you today?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, go to the website and check us out. And
Yeah.
I'm always interested in what you think of it. We've put a lot of hard work into getting the website the way it is now. Anybody that works on websites know it's always got room for improvement. My ego is not in how good the website is, but I'm willing to hear whatever you have to say. Sign up for the newsletter, use the contact us form and tell us something that you have as an idea. You can volunteer. You can just offer to share our mission with your social media. I mean, awareness is one of the biggest speed bumps that you have to work with as you're just fairly new. So put it out there would be terrific. And we do have a store too. Now we take artwork and we put it on merchandise. We have Impartial branded items as well. Keep looking at that because we're adding more. Each week we try to put that together more and more. And we just, as much as anything, just appreciate you spreading the word about what we do and who we are. And if you think that something in the criminal justice system bothers you and you feel like you'd like to be around like-minded people, we just like to have you be a part of our community, whatever that might look like. And
Great.
I would say, my parting comment where all that is concerned is really that your habits are going to bring you closest to your impact, because all of this that we were talking about is about impact. So if you think that there's some kind of knee-jerk reaction for something that you see on the news and you just donated to it and say, well, I feel better because I donated to X. I don't want to say anything derogatory about that, but I will say that if you're looking for wholeness, it is the habits and it's, that mindset that's going to bring you to the impact really that's going to make you feel good about yourself and that you really did do something pretty special. So yeah.
I'm looking forward to your first conference, man. It's going to be great. This is
Oh,
wonderful.
it's been such a pleasure spending time with you, Lori. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, one thing, Diane, leave everybody with one thing besides wholeness and habits.
Uh, well, I guess the one thing that I would say is, don't take too much for granted about what might lie ahead. Because I mean, I thought I knew where I was going on my journey in life, and I got derailed one day and never could never return to that. So really be very purposeful with your time because you never get that back.
Mm.
And, you can get your money back and you can get a lot of other things back. Nobody's ever going to give you your time back. So are you spending that time the way that you want to? Don't take it for granted that you're going to be able to do something later. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, again, join me in thanking Diane Wells from Impartial for today's conversation. It was a different topic. It was a different, definitely industry than we normally dive into. But I will say what definitely drives the line for us with maximizing excellence is her focus is on people, and she's developing an organization that is going to be successful, is already successful, and going to continue to be successful. And she's going to be engaging and collaborating cohesively with many, many, many people across the United States. Correct, Diane?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, already. And it just happens to be criminal justice.
It is. It is.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today and grabbing your lunch and grabbing your pen and your pad and hanging out with us and listening to another episode of Maximize Excellence. And we look forward to our next session coming up. You're going to get myself and Lynn, and we're going to be talking about partnerships and the importance of partnership. And we're going to be sharing a little bit about how unique and special our personal partnership is with Harris Whitesell Consulting. So I hope that you definitely join us, and we appreciate you. Each week you come and join us here on Mondays at noon Eastern time, and we look forward to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Maximize Excellence. Visit our events page on our website for details on upcoming podcasts, and visit our YouTube channel to listen to past episodes. And remember to ask yourself at the end of each day, did I do my best to maximize excellence today?